Hello everybody, Jake, your resident content cowboy here, Yeehaw, and I'm here to tell you that Metagross is the worst. It's kind of the worst, but there's some silver linings here. Metagross right now on the public test server is one of the most underwhelming Pokemon I have ever played. That's okay. It should be okay. First, really quickly, let's talk about what the public test server is. It is a nightmare realm that you have to go into to test some of these Pokemon. And as I often say, you are unlikely to be getting a great view of exactly how powerful a Pokemon will release inside of the game. What you're going to get more often is a good feel of a Pokemon's vibe, what they are going for with its kit, and how it might work inside of a match. There is nothing you can take from the PTS as far as power level or anything like that is concerned, which is why Metagross being so Metagross is actually not that worrying. Let's really quickly, I want to talk about some of the things I like, some of the things I don't like, why this Pokemon feels so Metagross, and what they could do actually to fix it. First off, Metagross is an all-rounder. The next all-rounder coming to the game right after that, we have Gyarados, which, I don't know, looks so much cooler. There's that factor as well. You have Gyarados that looks way cooler, and then you have Meowscarada that comes out right before Metagross, so it's kind of sandwiched between some very cool looking things, and also Metagross has some weird things holding it back. But the things I like about it, I actually really like a lot. For instance, its moves are not set up to be super fun right now, but they are pretty cool. Meteor Mash is really fun and it seems to do a lot of damage. It's just on one of the biggest cooldowns I've ever seen. It's like 11-second cooldown on this move. Now, your boosted attacks can lower cooldowns of your first slot move, so both Gyro Ball and Meteor Mash, but the cooldown is just massive. However, the move very cool. Same thing with Gyro Ball. I actually love Gyro Ball. I love the way it controls. I love that you can use it while moving. It should be really solid in some bigger team fights, so I think both of those moves are really fun, really cool. Its other two moves are varying levels of fine, but I think they could both be tuned up. So I like Zen Headbutt because it is a skill shot, and if you hit it, you like heat sink onto the enemy and you knock on them up, which is really cool. And in fact, I actually wish more moves in the game were like Zen Headbutt. The problem is more moves in the game are not like Zen Headbutt. So you have so many moves inside the game that are essentially sure hits that can do something similar or do just an insane amount of damage. And now you've got kind of this narrow skill shot on Metagross to do a move that puts you in danger because you're right near the enemies, but it does knock up your opponents and do okay damage. I think given how the rest of the game is, this is a confusing move, because most every Pokemon would have this as a sure hit at this point. Again, I'm happy it's not, but for that trade-off, you would expect something more impactful. And then Magnet Rise is cool, but it feels really short-lived. It probably will feel better in the main release of this Pokemon. I think everything will feel better in the main release of this Pokemon because it is in the public test server for this reason. To test it, make sure there aren't bugs, kind of see what the vibe of this thing is. And I think Magnet Rise could probably use more time, like more time while you are hovering so that you can do some pretty cool things. It combos kind of cool with Gyro Ball because you're able to continue the hovering, then use Gyro Ball, and then use your basic attack to slam down on the ground and knock opponents up. I think all of that is fun, but man, the cooldowns on everything are super long. Another thing I really like is its Unite move. It's very unique and it does some really cool stuff. And I think we're not going to be able to see the full effect of something like this until you really get to play it in a real match, because when you use it around more than 2 opponents, you like target an enemy, like this is a sure hit, like Heat Seek. You target an enemy and then you put this big wall down, basically this area that they can't get out of without a dash or eject button or something like that. And you could really, damage an enemy carry in a big way. You could set up a situation where you dash in, get to the enemy Delphox. There's nothing they could do. I guess they could put their Unite move down and make it kind of a hellscape for you to fight into. But you get what I'm saying. You can really shut down an enemy with it. However, you don't get to choose who it hits. So it goes to the lowest HP Pokemon, which sometimes could be good, but other times you're just putting yourself in a cage with a Slowbro, and Slowbro's already tanking a ton of the damage for the enemy team, and that's kind of what they wanted to do. And then other enemies might not get stuck in there. The fact that they can dash out's really interesting. It's a cool Unite move, And I don't think they need to mess with it too much because I would love to see it in the main game. I also just like the look and feel of Metagross. I think it's a cool looking Pokemon. I think it's interesting what they're doing with some of the choices around its leveling and such, which I would definitely put into the bad column for this Pokemon, but I like what they're going for here. I think there's going to be a question on a lot of people's minds as to whether or not Metagross feels like an all-rounder or a defender. Maybe a little bit of mix of both, which we're kind of seeing more in some of these Pokemon. You know, Mimikyu feels like an all-rounder, but it also feels like a speedster. So we're seeing more and more of this inside the game, and I don't think that's really even a bad thing, that things are kind of, you know, a shade of this and a shade of that. However, I do think right now at its current power level and its current design, I think you would release this into the game and you would be kind of scratching your head as to exactly where to put this Pokemon. I can't believe I really scratched my head when I did that. You'd be kind of scratching your head, rubbing your chinny chin as you're trying to figure out where exactly you want to play this thing. Here's one of the biggest issues with it. Its leveling is evolving at 5 and 9. It's a really late Evo, and it doesn't feel powerful enough for how late of an Evo this Pokemon has right now, especially when things like Charizard, Blastoise, Venusaur are all down at 7. We see a lot of Pokemon not waiting this late. Now, of course, it feels like it's right on line with something like Tyranitar, but boy, power level doesn't feel like it's there. One of the biggest issues are the move cooldowns, which is great because that's like the easiest fix that's possible inside the game. If all of the moves, and I don't have an exact number here, but just I'm spitballing, okay? Just don't get mad at me for spitballing right now. I feel like everyone's always attacking me when I'm just spitballing. If you just take its moves and cut them, you know, cut a third of the time off them. So, you know, if you got an 11-second cooldown and you're knocking it to under 7 or something like that, I think, okay, now we're talking a little bit. Gyro Ball, if you knock it down to maybe like a 5-second cooldown, maybe something like that. Magnet Rise, same thing, or you give it some more duration. These aren't massive changes, you know, from a design standpoint. They're really easy. You just change the numbers, right? And then all of a sudden, this Pokemon is a lot more viable and a lot more fun. Something I was talking about on stream was how I wasn't having a ton of fun playing this Pokemon, and that's one of, I think, the biggest issues when you're looking at a newly designed Pokemon. Is it fun? Regardless of how good it is it fun to play this Pokemon? For instance, Mimikyu releases, it doesn't have a super high win rate. I really enjoyed it pre-buffs. I think it was so fun. Shadow Sneak and Shadow Claw, it's just a super fun combination. You're bouncing around the map. You have opportunities to make some really cool plays. Blaziken, being able to switch back and forth between these moves. I feel like Metagross is one of the kind of least fun Pokemon I have played in a bit, and I think a lot of that is just because your cooldowns are so massive that you're not really getting to use a lot of this Pokemon's kit as often as you like. Even if they lower the effects of some of these moves, it could be really cool just to use them more often. I don't need a Pokemon to be broken. Like, I did not like playing Mewtwo Y and Mewtwo X, partially because they were broken and partially because I don't think their kits were all that interesting. And I think Metagross falls into this weird area of, it's got some cool things in its kit, but you just don't do it often enough to feel like it's really, I don't know, like it's really fun. All of this, however, still has to come with this big caveat that this is the point of the public test server. The point of this is to test these Pokemon, see how they feel, and then you'll see the developers take information from players, kind of get the vibe of the community, and adjust it before it reaches the main game. I don't think you need to worry about this Pokemon's power level or anything like that. I think by the time it hits the game, it will be quite powerful, as many Pokemon are. So I actually think it's great that we're getting to play it on the public test server, because if they have a survey or they ask or anything like that, I think it's clear that most people will say this Pokemon's not that exciting and they need to do something to kind of make it more interesting to play inside the game. And I do want to hit on this skill shot thing one more time. I actually love the design of Zen Headbutt. Now, please, they're not going to do this. Now, please make every other move in the game a skill shot like this, and then we're into some really exciting territory. And what that means, if you're just a little unaware of what that term is, skill shot's kind of like a move you aim, you know, and it has to hit the enemy for it to do its effect, rather than liquidation or something that's a sure hit move. They're just in your sphere of influence, and then you press your button and all of a sudden you're firing off 25,000 damage. So I actually love the idea of more things being skill shots, but I think you're going to need to make other things in the game react that way as well. I hope this was interesting. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. As always, let me know your thoughts about this Pokemon in the comments. And how do you feel about Meowscarada? I feel like it's a lot more exciting than this, so I'm pretty stoked for its release. All right. Love you guys. I'll see you all next time. Metagross. Do something with Metagross.